Hello and welcome everyone. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation and recording for the part of the lesson that has us looking at campaigns and elections. This is more of a general reading that's going to help us understand more about why campaigns and elections are important for our democracy and specifically part of the electoral process. So before we get started, once again, please let me encourage you to open up to the correct part for today's lesson. You are welcome to listen carefully to the following recording and to fill in the answers to the key concept questions on the Google Doc. Let's go and get started. And we shall begin right now. Campaigns and elections. Collectively, on all levels of government, Americans fill more than 500,000 different public offices. Elections from the foundation of modern democracy, and more elections are scheduled every year in the United States than in any other country in the world. Campaigns, where candidates launch efforts to convince voters to support them, precede most elections. In recent years, campaigns have become longer and more expensive, sparking a demand for campaign finance reform. No one questions the need for campaigns and elections, but many people believe that the government needs to set new regulations on how candidates and parties go about the process of getting elected to public office. Types of elections. Primaries. One reason that the process of campaigning is longer and more expensive is that primary elections now play such an important role in nominating candidates for office. Until the late 19th century, party activists generally selected candidates. Then, primary elections were invented as a part of a movement to democratize party nominations, and over the years, most states have adopted them. Direct primaries allow all party members to vote to choose the party's candidates for the general election. Most states conduct closed primaries, in which only registered party members may vote for their party's nomination. A few states allow voters to choose the party primary in which they want to vote on primary election day, and a process known as open primaries is what we're talking about here. Primaries are usually held in the spring before the general election in the fall. General elections. By law, candidates for Congress must be selected on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November in even-numbered years. The president and the vice president have 4-year terms, so they are only selected in every other general congressional election. But state and local elections can be held at the same time and on the same ballot with national candidates, but sometimes they are elected in odd-number years or at other times of the year. For most elected positions, 50% of the vote is not required, but candidates need to win more votes than anyone else. Presidential campaigns. Campaigns can be very simple or very complex. Running for the local school board is relatively simple. Candidates may just be required to file their names, answer a few questions from local newspaper, and sit back and wait for the election. But running for president is altogether different. Today, it is almost impossible to mount a campaign for the presidency in less than 2 years. How much money does it take? It certainly involves millions of dollars. Even the decision to run can be an expensive process. Potential candidates typically launch an exploratory committee that involves extensive polling and fundraising activities. Once potential candidates announce their candidacy, they must campaign for the primaries. Because primaries are conducted by states over several months in the spring before the election, candidates must crisscross the country, spending lots of time and money in the process. By tradition, the first primaries, Republican and Democratic, are held in New Hampshire in February, and the winners usually get a great deal of attention. As they mount their next campaigns, the winners often get more contributions than the losers, and so a phenomenon known as front-loading is created. The candidates who win the first few primaries almost always tend to win the later ones. Party activists gather at the party conventions, held in the summer to nominate their candidates formally. In the days before primaries, the party selection was often uncertain going into the convention. Today, however, the primaries make the decision. The candidates also announce their vice presidential running mates at the summer conventions. After the conventions, the race for the general election begins. Since most American voters identify themselves as moderates, candidates often shift their messages to capture the middle. Presidential and vice presidential debates, usually held in October, have become an important part of recent campaigns. As campaigns become more expensive across the country, candidates, government officials, and outside agencies have called for limits on where money can come from. The intent of these limits would be to return power to the electorate and take it out of the hands of special interest groups. Others believe that the limit of campaign contributions in any way would take away the First Amendment rights of individuals and groups to express their opinion on issues and candidates. But the expense and length of modern American elections and campaigns has become one of the biggest issues in politics today. Some recommend that political party spending be more closely monitored, and others believe that overall spending caps must be set. Still, others advocate national, not state, control of the primary process in order to reduce the length and expense of campaigns. Whatever the criticisms, American elections and campaigns represent a dynamic and vital link between the citizen and government. So there you guys have it. That's the reading here for that part of the lesson. Once again, please remember to answer the key concept questions that appear in the doc, and then you can move on to the other parts of the lesson accordingly. Thank you very much for tuning in.